Begin. Thank
Fantastic.
you everyone for tuning in. My name is Samara Madvani and I'm the founder of a social media agency called Posted by Samara. And this is Riddhi Walia. Riddhi, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Samara. Thank you for inviting me to chat with you. This is fun. Well, I'm the founder of Mirabilis. It's a PR practice, and we have a lot of fun with the brands we work with, and we've been doing so for 2 decades. So it's been an interesting understanding of what we are doing as opposed to what the market wants. And yeah, it's been a fun journey, and I look forward to this session as well.
Great. So just to recap, in this session, we'll be presenting actionable insights for how you can increase your brand's effectiveness
Right, right,
on both social media and in public relations,
right,
especially in this time of COVID. And if you guys have any questions, please just put them in the comments below and we'll try our best to answer them
right.
if we don't cover on it during the session. So the first point was right now everybody seems to be posting on social media, but what are some actionable measures that a brand can take during this time to stand out?
I think this is a very it's a very interesting time. It's very interesting because we really are in the deep end of the water, and when you look at it from that perspective, and you are in the deep end of the water, you have no choice but to swim. So that
Definitely.
that applies to pretty much everything, and most certainly with communications, with brands. And I think this is a fantastic time to research. I really think this is a fantastic time to understand your market, to let your market talk to you, to see what the market wants,
Definitely.
because I feel that otherwise we're also consumed in doing what we want, that we really don't have too much time to listen. And I think this is a fantastic time
Definitely.
to listen, to understand what the market wants. So I think definitely, research, be relevant, and then respond. So process all of that and then respond, and that's what I suggest. Brands should be doing, which of course is definitely slower, but so is this time. So what better than this time?
No, definitely. And I think adding on to that, now is a great time for brands to focus on generating relevant, original, and responsible content which drives appropriate action.
Yeah,
And like in the focus of the content should no longer be geared towards like driving sales, but it should be more about like creating a brand recall in the mind of the customer. So when everything does hopefully go back to normal, the brand was in their mind because they've been active, they've been driving the right message. So consumers will want to like buy the product or use the service again.
yeah, and I also think this is a great time for all brands and services to focus on their storytelling, to focus on their promise, to focus on their commitment. If you go back in time and you look at brands that we buy from, okay, and we buy from regularly, that are household names, whether it is a certain type of tomato ketchup, or whether it is some bottle of water, those brands in particular, you are buying into the promise, you're buying into that commitment, you're buying into the responsibility, you're buying into their ability to stay afloat. And I think this is a very good time to tell those stories. This is a very good time to actually speak about what your brand stands for. you know Otherwise you're so busy focusing on product that there's very little time to tell a story, because either you're focusing on speaking about your product and trying to retail it offline, online, through various other mediums, and your story is something that most often is an afterthought. For various reasons. I'm not negating that way of working, but that's how it has been. And I genuinely do believe that this is a great time for brands to tell where did they start, because I'm sure every brand has something beautiful to say. Especially
No,
brands that are
definitely.
really rooted, that are started by young entrepreneurs, that are actually looking at giving back, creating a community. This is also that very good time, to create that community, because a sense of belonging is what all of us need now more than ever. Whether it's belonging to our city, our country, our people, all of that. And our brands actually do become part of that belonging story. So if you do have that story, it's a great time to say it as opposed to focusing on your product.
Definitely. And right now, another question that always comes up is when everything is focused on COVID, how do you make your campaign noticeable? How do you get people to actually pay attention to it when the focus seems to be on what's going on around us in this world?
Yeah, I think it's doable. But of course, you have to be sensitive, you have to be compassionate, you have to be kind. You have to be very, very kind in your communication. You have to understand that what is going on around us is not more important than our agendas or our personal agendas, whatever they might be. And
Exactly.
especially when we are speaking about brands, that's why the brand also, whatever your brand is trying to communicate, make sure that it is relevant, it is creating some sort of happiness somewhere. Add a dash of humor, make it fun, but don't make it very extremely vibrant or irrelevant. Be sensitive to what's going on and yet tell your story. So I think it's about finding that balance. To be able to say that yes, I've got
Definitely.
the middle path right now, and most certainly what's going on is affecting everybody: the cat, the dog, the vegetable vendor, the biggest industrialist. Everybody is
Exactly.
affected by it. So we have to understand that so are our brands. And so when you're telling your story, you have to understand, you have to keep that whole sense of community, that whole sense of you know belonging in mind, and then tell whatever you're saying. Create fun content, create that sense of happiness, because who ultimately doesn't want it? The news is very
Exactly.
disturbing. It is extremely disturbing. That said, people are consuming more news more than ever now. Ever, ever, ever in the history of news. I mean, if you actually go through any of the datas, sorry, not datas, I'm very sorry about that, data available, you will see that, news is being consumed across every medium, every minute, whether it is digitally, whether it's television. Well, our newspapers are not available, but e-papers are available. So you have an overdose of information, and what else do you do? So you are consuming information. It's about how you package your information and send it out. So that's where the trick is. People are there. People, in fact, now have more time than they ever had to take information in.
Exactly.
You know, it's just about how you package it and with what sensitivity you package it, and make it interesting enough for everybody to consume it at this point.
No, definitely. And I've seen some great examples from different companies that offer like free resources to their customers to face the crisis. Like a
Yeah,
lot of academic publishers are making their online content available to support like teachers and students during online learning. And
correct.
also like personal trainers and gyms have started like YouTube channels where they post videos on how we can keep fit. So I think like now more than ever, customers want to hear from brands. So
Yeah.
cutting back on social media investment would just be a big mistake during this time because it has such a big reach right now.
No, I didn't get that last point of yours about cutting down on.
Sorry, no, I said sorry. You shouldn't cut down right now because you
Right.
have the opportunity to reach so many people.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think engagement is very high right now. Consuming information is very, very high right now. It's
Definitely.
about how you make yourself relevant and what is the information that you create for your consumers.
No, definitely. And just to give you a little bit of like the technical side of it, I put together some like facts and statistics about like different social media platforms. So I'll just quickly run over that with you guys. So basically, Forbes conducted a study over 25,000 people in 30 different countries. And the results show that engagement is basically increased by 61% over
Yeah.
normal usage rates.
There you
So
go.
that
Yeah.
like, and platforms like Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram, WhatsApp, they've increased by 50% in the countries that are hardest hit by the virus. And Twitter seeing 23% more daily users than it was last year at this time. So
Right.
like it's absolutely huge. So like you can definitely like look into all the different platforms and figure out which one makes the most sense for you and your brand.
Yeah.
So like some of the ones that I would recommend, Instagram stories, the usage is up by 15% since the outbreak started. So you can definitely try and encourage your followers to try more interactive content. Like you can do like challenges, workouts, like live streams like the one we're doing right now.
Yeah,
And I would definitely recommend for brands to be posting at least stories every single day because it's really important for them to stay at the top of the mind. So whenever consumers can resume everything, they still remember that the brand was active during this time.
right.
And then also another interesting one is LinkedIn. So a lot of workers are now working from home full time, and a lot of people have already unfortunately been laid off during COVID. So I think that we're going to see a huge surge in LinkedIn usage in the future and now as well.
Yeah, yeah,
And then another really interesting one is Zoom. So Zoom is not actually a social network, but it does have many of the makings of one. So you can do like social interactions, chat functionality. You can break off into groups. So like a lot of brands, like for example, Soho House, where you have to be a member of it,
yeah,
they're providing a content for people on Zoom, so you can access it from anywhere in the world. So it's really
right.
interesting to see what people are doing.
Yeah,
And I think like the most interesting platform to see during this time is TikTok. I don't know how many people are familiar with it because it's a relatively new platform, but the target audience is like between the ages of 12 to 25. And those are
right,
the people who are at home right now. Like they don't have school, they're working from home, so they have a lot of time on their hand. So by running a campaign on TikTok, you can basically get them to participate in the brand campaign instead of just passively watching traditional ads on TV. And because it's reaching these younger mobile consumers, they're the ones
right,
who are interested and likely to like do all of this.
right, right. Um, yeah, and to add to that, I feel, Samara, that it's also very important. Like I use that word research in my first answer to you. And I feel it's very important to study the behavior of all these platforms independently because each one of these
Definitely.
platforms has a potential to very high, to have a very high reach and a very high impact on what you are trying to communicate. So it cannot be a one size fits all strategy. If it means that yes, you are active and strong on really one platform, then so be it. It's really
I
not.
agree.
It is not about quantitative. It is a qualitative space.
Definitely.
Create your community, get your community to engage with you. Have a sense of commitment to the platform as well, because then you will see the way the platform responds to you as well.
Exactly.
And I also feel that, especially from an India story point of view, I do feel that we really, 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 really need to start thinking regional. We need to start thinking beyond the English language. While, most of us, I'm assuming most of us who are here right now on this session think in English, speak in English, but we must understand there is a very, very, very big market that's you know comfortable. It's much more accessible in regional languages, whether it is Malayali, whether it is Gujarati, Hindi, whether it is Tamil, Kannada.
Exactly.
Getting into that space, and this is a great time to to learn and to educate yourself. It's very, very important to think local. The markets are getting hyper local. We don't know when we are going to travel next. So, you're probably going to be selling, in your neighborhood for very long. So you must not just think English. That's really my suggestion to everybody.
And in terms of what are some communication challenges that brands could potentially be facing during this time?
No, sorry. I didn't. I lost you over there for a second.
What are some communication challenges that brands could be facing during this time?
Most, I would say, communication challenges will happen if you create that challenge for yourself. So, if you take a step back and you realize, and you actually evaluate, I don't think realize is the word, but if you evaluate the importance of the communication you are putting out, then you will understand whether this is relevant or no. And if it is relevant, it is not a challenge, and if it is not relevant, don't put it out in the first place. So,
Exactly.
you create the challenge for yourself. I mean, writing is on the wall. the situation is up there. Everybody knows about it. So you know what the challenges are. But just tweak your communication. Be sharp, be clever, be informed.
And what are some challenges that you think we should expect to face once this whole situation improves?
There I have a 50-50 point of view, and I'm myself trying to understand that are people just going to be are waiting to get out of this cage and be set free and say, I want to be happy, I want to eat and drink and consume and forget about it, which is wishful thinking. I'm not writing it off, it could happen, I'm telling you. We've seen it happen with some really difficult times, even in the past. However, this is not like anything else that anybody has ever experienced. Hence, keeping the sanctity and the sensitivity of this time, we must brace ourselves for challenges like low spends for sure. There will be budget cuts in terms of consuming non-essentials. What non-essentials are is different to some people and not different to some. But when you are talking about probably very high-end leather goods, luxury goods, things like that will definitely see a drop. I would say even in the way we consume and how much we spend. Spend is going to become a conversation for sure. It is going to be a
Definitely.
concern, and we cannot give a blind eye to that. So most certainly, when everything that you're doing at this point, when you're speaking with your consumer, uh, be ready that budgets are tight, and you will have to understand that and be sensitive to that.
And speaking of spending, a lot of brands have had to cut their spending as their budgets are reduced during this time. So,
Right.
how can you effectively create content without an agency?
There I feel that I genuinely feel you cannot. I mean, unless you have really smart people on your team, like in your team, I genuinely feel that professional help is professional help. You have fever, you go to a doctor. You want to make a building, you go to an architect. You want to decorate a house, you go
Exactly.
to a designer. And there's a reason why professionals are professionals. What would be interesting is that you get you have everything is about relationships and communication, and I hope that most people have a rock steady, a good bond with their agencies, where obviously there is a mutual understanding that yes, the market is difficult, and I'm going to hold your hand and sail with you through this and support you. And I genuinely feel that that also is a sense of community, because you support your agency supports you, and whatever the budgets might be can be discussed internally for sure. But I don't think
Exactly.
giving up your agency, because your agency is the one that makes the roadmap for your communication, that is communicating with your community, that knows how your community responds. You can't just cut that off one day and say that, oh, we'll start after 3 months, unless of course your shop is shut. If it's completely shut and you really have nothing, you really are in a tough situation. But if you're not, and if you're able to stay afloat, then I'm sure there are enough people out there who understand that yes, this is the time when we should all partner with each other and be there for each other.
No, and this leads me on to another. I'll skip a question and then go back to that later. But for
Yeah,
businesses that are shut or not operating as usual, it may seem pointless to be posting if no one can access the services. So,
yeah.
how do you recommend that they should create content, or should they even be creating content?
This is exactly what I answered. So if your business is shut, see that again is what I was just talking about. That your business is your story. It is not your product. And that is what I think. I mean, the best example to that we have is the West. Where brands have been created from the story. There's an aspiration, there's a story. There are countries that are created with those stories. So this is that time to understand that yes, I have the time, let me tell my story. In what way am I, if you're a restaurant, in what way do I source produce? How did I start my restaurant? What is my kitchen team like? What is my decor like? It's okay if people cannot access it. You don't have to talk about the fact that you have the best butter chicken. And that's unfortunately that's where everybody is just limited. That, oh, if I'm not selling, so, but that's not the point. The point is that you have a story out there. You create a story and tell it. May not be with that much frequency as you would when you would be operational, which is understandable. But you don't stop telling your story. If you're going to open, if you're not, then please don't tell any story.
Exactly. And I have some tips from the
And
social media side on
I
while
can't hear you, darling. I can't hear you. I think I lost you again.
is it better now?
It is, yes.
Perfect. So posted by Samara put together some tips for content creation and posting that you should keep
Lovely.
in mind during this time.
Right.
So I'll just run through them briefly
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Number one, we recommend you listen and you acknowledge the situation.
Yeah.
Ignoring COVID or pretending it's not everything is normal can come across as very like inauthentic and tone deaf. So let your followers know that you know what's going on around us. And
Yeah.
even if it feels inappropriate to be posting all of this stuff, you can explain to your followers why you're doing so. Like, for example, a small brand can be saying that they still want to sell their jewelry because they need to keep their employees' jobs. So you can basically humanize your brand by being honest.
Yes.
Number two, if you're unable to market or sell your products or services right now, focus on sharing content that aligns with your brand values instead.
Right.
You can still use content that you've created before COVID as long as you give context in your captions. So
Mm-hmm.
don't feel as if all your content's gone to waste.
Yeah.
Number three, show empathy so your followers know that you understand what they're going through. You don't have to mention COVID in every single post,
Absolutely.
but make sure that you consider the tone of your captions and how it could be interpreted by people facing a different reality than you might be in.
Right.
So swap words that you'd usually use for hard selling for something more subdued. So for example, like don't write like flash sale and stuff because it could come off very insensitive to people who are not in the position to be buying luxury items or like extra things which are not necessities.
Right.
Number four, focus on providing organic value. So turn your Instagram or whatever social media page into a valuable resource for your audience. Focus on engagement first instead of driving traffic. So you can do this by providing extra education through videos, carousel posts, captions. So don't ask people to keep like swiping up and clicking on the link in your bio. Just give them the content when they're seeing it. Another way to provide value is by shifting your overall content strategy to address social distancing
Mm-hmm.
and give your followers what they're needing the most right now. So I think a great example of this is this clothing brand called Revolve, and they're known for these influencer trips they do called Revolve around the world. So they take a whole bunch of influencers to some exotic place and make them pose with the pictures and stuff. So they shifted it to Revolve at home. So basically, they've reduced the number of posts. They've changed it to stuff that would actually make sense and you could actually do in your living room. So like a workout or a live music session or a
Yeah.
cooking class or something. So it just shows that they are listening to their consumers and consumers will want to keep following along with them and buy with them
Right.
later on in the future. And the last tip I have is get vulnerable in your content. Share your story and clearly communicate how your followers can support your business right now. It's completely okay to ask for help, so don't feel scared to be doing that.
Absolutely fantastic. It's beautifully summarized, right?
Thank you. And so basically, we've been talking about the idea that like for example, right now there's so much content going on. So as a brand, and since you're a PR expert, what makes the publication pick up one feature or feature one brands over another brand?
I think again, when you're specifically speaking about publications, whether it is print or magazines, again, it's the story. It's one word, and that's your story. So how are you saying your story, which is beyond your product, which has got a sense of what your brand promise is, what your brand stands for, how relevant is your brand, and once you have that communication well chalked out, your story is making it to print.
And I saw a lot of people adding tips, asking questions about influencers. So I have another tip for that. So even it is a tough time for brands, but it's also a tough time for influencers. So it's a great time for brands to actually
Yeah.
running influencer campaigns. So I would recommend for brands to be reaching out to influencers they've worked with in the past and ask them to repost content from older campaigns at a reduced rates. So because influencers usually shoot a bunch of pictures, they only post a few of them. So this is a win-win for both influencers and brands because it allows influencers to still be receiving income, and also it's more affordable for brands that need to be cutting costs while driving more sales.
Right, right. Yeah,
And
absolutely. I think you have, your influencer is has been part of your journey again. So very important to keep holding as many hands as you can, right?
exactly. And going on to our last point, which seems to be in everyone's mind, do luxury non-essential products have a chance of surviving this period?
They'll survive this period. After this period is where the challenge is. Right now, luxury non essential is non existent. But again, the part is specifically with digital or your storytelling. It's about what is your brand standing for? What is it that your future holds for your brand? How is your brand going to speak to the new market? Because when you come back, the market is not going to be what it was. Consumer behavior is going to change. It's going to change, and then it's probably going to change again. So, this is the time when you have to study, when you have to understand that who is my consumer? What is my consumer looking for after this? Is my consumer looking to escape? And then how am I going to provide that to my consumer? So it's a very important time for, marketeers, for, digital planners to actually get to the depth of the psychology of the ultimate buyer and understand what they are thinking right now. Great time to do that. And then yes, then you're saying
Exactly.
yes, you're relevant. So this is the time to invest. You cannot say that I come back after 4 months and I'm going to make that investment. This is that time. This
I
is really that
agree.
time. Yeah.
Perfect. So I think we've covered all of our content. I'm just quickly
Fantastic.
seeing. I think a lot of people are asking questions. I'm just seeing if there's anything we haven't answered.
Sure.
So, um, so here's a question. As we all know, social security is the need of the hour. How does a brand with rural communities as a target audience reach all these people as they may not have accessibility to social media?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, so this is fantastic actually because this does touch upon that point when I spoke about we have to stop marginalizing our communication in English. That's I think one definite uh, uh, way that we have to think. Second is we are there's a pre-geo and a post-geo age. And post-geo has just tripled the number of data users in the country, which means that people have access to data, which means people are consuming information, whether it is through YouTube, WhatsApp videos, etc. So then, you could find ways to reach them. Other than that, people who are not on the data wagon, that's a challenge right now for sure. So there, I don't have an answer for. But otherwise, most certainly, get regional, think local, and create content, create videos that can be circulated on mediums other than just social media. So you should probably get onto groups, onto community groups, and then create content that is able to go viral. So that would be my answer to that question.
I think we've covered. I'm trying to see if we missed out any
Okay.
questions. There's a lot of comments, so it's a little hard to go through them. Yeah, so I think we've ended up covering a lot of the topics and stuff. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to pop them below. We'll be live for like another couple of minutes.
I hope we'll be alive for more than that, Samara.
No, live on Instagram. Hopefully more than that. Okay, here we got another question.
Yeah.
What messaging should F&B/hospitality companies put out to restore consumer confidence, especially since the industry is likely to be badly affected for the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, fabulous. I really feel, I feel it's so important right now. The industry, the whole hospitality industry, the food and beverage industry is going through such a hard time, and it is actually such a backbone of our lives otherwise. All of us are thinking pizza and pasta and macaron and and pav bhaji and everything all the time because we're on the move. And imagine you just cut that out, you cut travel out, and boom, it just falls. But that said, I think the restaurant industry, a certain segment of the restaurant industry, is doing a fantastic job. They're so proactive. They're speaking about how they're looking after their employees, about how the National Restaurant Association of India is making so many efforts, coming up with so many solutions of buy now, pay later, and I think those are great initiatives, and that will certainly help boost consumer confidence as well as be able to sail their ships.
No, definitely. And adding on to that, I've seen some pretty great initiatives, both in Bombay and in New York, of restaurants just being honest about their story, honest
Yeah,
about what's going on. And I recently received an email from this company, that basically gives discounts at restaurants. And what they were saying is that they're basically allowing people to purchase vouchers now at a
yeah,
discounted price. So the
right.
restaurant has some like cash, and then you can redeem it once the whole situation
Sure.
improves and the restaurant's open. So like you said, I think it's just so important that they're being honest about the situation and people are willing to help because
Yeah, I
they
think that's the most important. The first thing is tell the truth that yes, I'm in trouble. This is not the time to just cover up and say, hey, everything is fantastic. So
No, definitely. And we have another question right now. One of the biggest challenges is getting customers to share on social media. So, is there a way to ask politely? So,
what's the
in my,
what is I didn't
is
hear.
there
Okay. Yeah.
one of the biggest challenges is getting customers to share your product on social media once they receive it? Is there a way to ask politely? So I would say just be honest and ask them straight out. I feel like if you feature them back, everyone likes getting more followers and more
Yeah.
likes and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna feature their post of you, they're most likely will post something about it, even if it's just a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's the last question. I don't know if either of us have experience answering this, but we'll try our best. How do hotels get customers back when there's such a big break and no transport available to destination hotels at tourist locations?
Here, I mean, we do work with people in the tourist industry, and I feel that domestic local travel will see an upswing. If things ease off, we will all travel. I mean, it's just human nature. Ultimately, every human being just wants to be free and happy, and right now that's the basic issue. Your freedom has just been, completely curtailed, and for good reason. But I feel that you will see an upswing in a lot of local travel towards maybe the third quarter of the year, and that will happen. International travel is hard to say at this point, but local travel, nearby destinations, just out of your cities, wherever you live, that will ease off. So that will provide some respite to that industry. Of course, with
Perfect.
all the
So
rules, and, with all the yeah.
it may just take longer than expected.
No, and also the hotels and the tourist destinations will all have to have their due diligence in place. All their sanitation will have to be top notch. The social distancing norms, all of that will have to be respected and adhered to. And you will definitely see that movement. But I would say locally, not internationally yet.
Yeah, and a lot of people are also commenting that like a raised travel cost and people just being a little bit nervous to travel and stuff may limit it immediately. So it may not open up as soon as the situation improves. But I think, like you said, eventually it'll start improving again.
Human beings are a resilient lot. I mean, we've seen so much, we've seen so many disasters, and I'm not putting anything, I'm not saying anything is less or more, but human beings just inherently say, okay, I'm alive, I'll deal with it, and eventually we will all deal with it in whatever way. and hopefully for the good. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
But fingers crossed. But I
Yeah.
think we've run out of time, so and I think we've answered most of the questions.
Lovely. Yeah.
So thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. Hopefully that was insightful, if anything. And we'll be posting it on YouTube, or we'll let you know where you can access it in case you missed it or want to go back to any of the points. And you can direct message either of us at any point if you have something in specific to ask, and we'd be happy to help you with that.
Fabulous. Thank you, Samara. Thanks for this, and have a great Sunday evening.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.